Okay, let's talk about Valve's SteamOS. It is basically an absolute Arch Linux powerhouse, right? But it's masquerading as this simple, highly streamlined console experience. So what actually happens when you try to strip away that console disguise and use it as your everyday daily driver desktop PC? Well, in this explainer, we're tearing right into the guts of SteamOS. We really want to see if it can survive life outside of game mode and figure out if all that underlying customizability is actually accessible to someone who just wants a true hybrid machine. So that brings us to the big question. Can you actually daily drive this thing? It's a vital question to ask. I mean, one of the biggest theoretical selling points of a premium Steam machine is that it doubles as a fully functional personal computer. But if the average user is completely lost trying to just check their email, manage files, or install third-party software, that selling point completely evaporates. Let's really look at the practicality of bridging the gap between a pure gaming ecosystem and a reliable setup for your daily work.
All right, part one, the daily driver experiment. Let's get into it.
To really understand the stakes of this tech quest, we got to talk about the price of admission. Buying a pre-built premium Steam machine can easily set you back over $1,000. That is a steep, steep price tag, especially when you realize that the real magic sauce powering that expensive device isn't necessarily proprietary hardware. It's the highly customized Linux software it's running. We aren't just doing this for fun. There's a very real financial implication to figuring out if SteamOS functions well enough to actually justify that kind of premium investment.
But here is the kicker. SteamOS 3.0 is freely available right now. Because the Steam Deck relies heavily on a custom APU, the operating system currently plays incredibly nicely with AMD graphics architectures. So, by just grabbing a budget AMD GPU from Micro Center, we were able to throw together a completely DIY Steam machine for practically nothing. And the installation process? Insanely fast. It literally blows almost any other Linux distro out of the water when it comes to getting from a plugged-in USB drive to an initial boot screen.
Which leads us right into part two, escaping game mode.
Now, that honeymoon phase, yeah, it ended pretty fast. Booting into game mode by default is kind of crazy behavior for a daily driver, but escaping it requires jumping through some very specific hoops. Because the OS is immutable out of the box, trying to simply save a configuration file literally causes the password prompt to delete itself right in front of your eyes. To break out of this loop, you actually have to manually create a custom admin password in the user settings, use the terminal to aggressively disable the read-only file system, and finally edit the steamos.conf file to prioritize the desktop environment on startup.
Whew. Honestly, though, you can't really blame Valve here. Making SteamOS read-only by default is a brilliant safeguard to protect casual console gamers from accidentally nuking their systems with a bad sudo command. It makes absolute total security sense for their core demographic. But for power users, or really anyone trying to use the device as a standard, customizable PC, it acts as a literal boss fight just to customize your boot sequence and get to a workable desktop.
Moving right along to part three, the desktop experience. Once you're actually in, you'll see SteamOS relies heavily on Flatpaks through the Discover app to maintain a safe, sandboxed experience. For basic users who just want to click and install, this is fantastic. But if you're a Linux veteran who instinctively opens up the terminal to use Pacman because it's faster and far more powerful, you are going to immediately slam headfirst into a wall. The moment you start treating it like a standard Arch installation, you run straight into aggressive errors, specifically regarding missing GPG keys.
The reality of tinkering with an immutable Linux system is just messy. Trying to install OBS Studio through the terminal triggered a catastrophic cascade of corrupted package errors. I'm talking like 10 million bajillion lines of angry red text flooding the screen. But in true, authentic Linux fashion, the only thing that saved the experiment was digging up a highly obscured 2-year-old Reddit thread containing the exact magic terminal commands we needed to clean the Pacman keyring and fix the massive mess. But here is the absolute crucial takeaway. Once you tidy up those frustrating Pacman errors, the KDE Plasma desktop experience is remarkably smooth. I mean, it genuinely rivals any standard Windows setup or traditional Linux PC out there. We threw heavy web browsing, intensive 3D modeling in Blender, and high bitrate screen recording at it, and the system handled absolutely everything beautifully. During actual workflows, you completely forget you're running an OS fundamentally designed for a handheld gaming console.
Which brings us to part four, the game mode tug of war. So picture this. Just when we thought we had the perfect hybrid machine configured, disaster strikes. On day one, we successfully create a custom shortcut to gracefully switch from the desktop environment back to game mode. Total triumph, right?
Well, on day 2, we turn the PC on, and it boots straight back into the console interface, completely ignoring our carefully crafted custom desktop setup. The culprit behind this sudden betrayal? A newly spawned system file that simply refused to cooperate. This mysterious ZIS SteamOS file acted almost entirely like malware. Because of how rigorously the operating system manages its state and updates, this specific file would just constantly respawn. If you deleted it, it came right back. If you edited it, it maliciously overwrote your text on the next reboot. It created this deeply frustrating ongoing tug-of-war between our customized desktop intent and Valve's hard-coded console behavior. After practically tearing our hair out and scouring the absolute depths of the KDE forums, we finally found a bafflingly simple fix. Instead of using a desktop shortcut, you just log out of the Plasma desktop entirely and select Game Scope, which is the game mode environment, directly from the login manager. For some bizarre reason, switching via a terminal command triggers the OS to forcefully spawn that evil overwriting file, but selecting it at the login screen doesn't. It's totally janky, I know, but it completely works and stabilizes the system.
And now for part 5, the final verdict. So where does this all leave us? Well, if you want an incredibly accessible starting point for basic Linux tasks that seamlessly runs alongside your gaming library, SteamOS is fantastic. The installation is fast, and everyday use is incredibly snappy. But if your goal involves advanced system-level customization, like swapping out the desktop environment for GNOME or heavily modifying the root architecture, you are going to hit a massive wall of black screens, forced restarts, and overwritten files. It's going to fight you every single step of the way.
Bringing it all back to the beginning, we have to look critically at that massive price tag for pre-built hardware. $1,000 is a lot of money to drop on a machine when its primary value proposition, that seamless hybrid gaming and desktop experience, is heavily tied to software that inherently wants to fight you when you try to use it as a real PC. The value of the official hardware really shrinks when the software acts as a bottleneck for power users.
So, I'm going to leave you with this to chew on. Considering how beautifully you can run this exact same operating system for absolutely free on budget hardware, is the official premium Steam machine truly worth the cost? And if we want the incredible gaming performance of SteamOS, but without the read-only handcuffs and aggressively respawning files, is it time we look at purpose-built distributions like KDE OS to finally build our ultimate unrestricted daily driver?